Guys, for lack of second.
Are we ready? We are ready to go. Oh, we are going. All right, the June 17th, 2014 regular meeting of the Granada Sanitary District Board of Directors, July 17th meeting of the Granada Sanitary District Board is hereby called to order, and we'll start with the roll call, please.
President Matthew Clark.
He's here and screwing up.
Vice President Leonard Warren.
Present.
Secretary Jim Blanchard.
Here.
Treasurer David Seaton.
Here.
Director Rick Lohman.
Here.
And Table General Manager Chuck Duffy, our legal counsel Jonathan Whitmer, and I'm the administrator Delia Camito.
All right, we always start with general public participation. Having no slips and seeing no public, we will move to...
Wait.
Mr. President.
Wait.
Do we have a flyer for the quarterly recycle event?
Sorry, no.
So that would be July 26th.
Yes.
And you'll get the website updated before then?
I'll have the flyers done tomorrow.
All right, so our standard recycle event for things that you can't put out curbside, but otherwise would have to drive up to the recycle yard in Pacifica will be July 26th, I assume from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m.
Yes.
On the district's property at the foot of Avenue Portola.
Thank you.
Mr. President,
Yes.
perhaps I should also announce that there was no reportable action taken. We were in closed session before this, and there was no reportable action taken.
And that we're reconvening closed session after the regular meeting.
From the special meeting.
Yes.
Thank you. Item 1.
Let's hope item 1 doesn't take a village.
All right, this is a consideration of resolution adopting the sewer service charge report and delinquent garbage account report and authorizing the collection of said charges on the 2014-15 fiscal year San Mateo County tax roll. And we do this every year, and Chuck,
Yeah, we do this every year. It's just a convenient means of billing our sewer service charges and collecting our delinquent garbage charges. So,
Seems to me the delinquent garbage charge is much, much higher this year than it's been in previous years.
There are more people on the list.
I mean, the total amount due is over, wait a minute. Well, just looking at the total amount due, it's over $10,000, and then there's recology fees on top of that. It seems to me in past years it's been like, I don't know, half that or something.
I don't remember.
It is quite a bit.
do we have any other board comments? All right, I'm going to open the public hearing to protest or hear any comments from the public. Not seeing any members of the public present, I will ask staff, did we receive any comments or protests?
We did not receive any written comments or protests regarding the report.
All right, then we will now close the public hearing.
I move approval of resolution number 2014-007, resolution adopting sewer service charge report and delinquent garbage service charge report and authorizing collection of said charges on the 2014-2015 tax roll.
I'll second that.
Do we have any further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Here, that's unanimous. I won't call for no's. All right. Item number 2, consideration of response to grand jury report regarding district website. And we have a draft of a response, written response by staff. Would
Yes. So as you'll remember, at our last meeting, we discussed the grand jury report and the specific format we have to answer their findings and whatnot from their report. So it's kind of interesting going down the findings and it's like the recommendations. Some of the findings, they're more like editorial comments, and so I said to most of them I agree, but you know, for instance, privacy concerns of board of directors result in a lack of readily accessible contact information. Well, I don't know, maybe for some people.
At the Harbor
but-
District.
Right. for some people, yes, for your board members, no. So, it's just kind of an interesting aside, but I guess I'd just say, maybe if you want, we can go down the findings consecutively, and if anyone's got an objection to how we suggested you answer, does someone have any objections anywhere? Sure. Okay. So F1, some districts are misinformed about the relative affordability of creating websites. We agree with that finding. The second one, special districts lacked trained in-house staff to regularly update website information. Again, so I said I partially disagree with that because some people have the expertise and some people don't. So it's just kind of a strange thing. We just discussed the privacy issue. Not all the special districts recognize the benefits of transparency delivered through district websites.
Oh, they all do. Some of them don't like it.
Right. And no county independent special district has completed the District of Distinction program. Well, I have to take their word for it, because
That was true, it is now not true.
Who did?
CCWD just got, I was
Oh.
gonna bring that up during the thing.
So-
No, in North Coast County Water,
Oh,
not CCWD, the Pacifica Group.
all right.
And if I can just mention that as part of the thing, it was mentioned at the LAFCO meeting, and they had asked Don Horsley, our supervisor, to show up, which he did at the meeting. He presented the certificate to the district and made a considerable deal
At which meeting did he present it at?
at their meeting, at the North Coast County Water.
Oh, their board meeting.
Yeah, so it's a big thing, the county appreciated it, and we can get somebody here to present the awards.
Okay.
And I'd like to be number 2.
All right.
Are we, instead of agreeing or disagreeing, are we allowed to say, we'll take your word for it, we have no information?
That's what I'd like to say, you know that.
No.
But I mean, yeah, it's
The idea
not-
is to respond quickly.
Right, and get it through and then start actually implementing their recommendations. So F6 on the next.
So are we we're pursuing that currently, the
Yes,
special
we're gonna,
district?
I was talking to Delia before, part of it's the district, so you have to meet that checklist, and then part of it's Delia has to start going to these conferences they have and whatnot. I actually have a district certificate, it's from the Special District Institute, it's a different program than this one, but, so, I have something like it anyway.
So, like, how many of these is Delia gonna have to go to? Is it on
I'm
a
taking
regular
this
basis?
from memory. I think if you go to 3 of them, and they have different specialties, one might be the Brown Act, one might be finance, and one might be running a board meeting, you get those 3 certificates, that makes you get the overall certificate.
So that's a one-time thing? That she goes to the 3, gets a certificate,
the
and that's
one.
that?
Yeah, I haven't looked into that, I don't remember.
And these ones cost money for this one?
Yeah,
Because I saw some of them don't cost money.
Right.
I think the next issue, the next one you're going on, but these ones, do we know the price
the
figure for that?
the conferences cost money, and it varies depending on where it is.
Couple $100 per
Yeah,
conference.
it's probably the hotels more than the actual conference,
Yeah.
usually. So
Probably.
That's why I was saying they're guaranteeing income for this,
Yeah.
this group by putting this in the grand jury report.
Which they get 10%.
Well, CSDA will probably come up with their own in short order, and they typically have theirs in, was it Rancho Cordera?
I think this is a subset
Cordova.
of CSDA, this program.
Hmm.
I thought it was.
I don't know, I went to something many years ago that was held at Rancho Cordova, got the government rate on the hotel room.
More.
So F6, as Rick pointed out, now we have one district who's received the transparency certificate. F7, no independent special district has earned the SDLF recognition in special district. And then F8 is no general manager, or top management official of any independent district has received their special district administrator certification. So we agreed with all those findings because, once again, I'm taking their word for it. So basically then, for the recommendations, we had to list whether we had done them, or if we hadn't done them, when would be a specified date that we would complete them by. So I simply checked off if we had done them. I told them when it had been done. And if we haven't done it yet, we'll do it before May 15th. Now, I just said that because that's what the grand jury's letter said. I think within the next month, we can certainly get all the district website stuff up to snuff. So we've got a list of that, and that should be pretty easy. So, but for all the others, it's going to take some time. For instance, to get the District of Distinction program. The SDLF Transparency Certificate of Excellence is going to take some time because they'll have to go to 2 or 3 conferences to get that.
Did the grand jury comment anywhere about having the board packets on the website? Because there's very few districts that do that.
Well, that's in state law, so that's not a
The
recommendation.
packets?
I think it is.
No?
I don't think it's required.
So are you talking about the packet or the
Yeah.
agenda? Oh, I'm
Packet.
sorry. Oh, yeah,
Packet.
right. Okay. No, they did not.
Because at some point, why don't you agendize this for some convenient future board meeting, but I want to talk about one way or another getting our packets online, but there's a lot of considerations there.
Okay. So, like I said, we've got, the due date is May 15th, 2015. We'll get most of this stuff done much sooner as we can, so I guess I would, unless anyone's got any strong objections to any of the findings or recommendations we've made here, I'd suggest, you send it out.
Well, I
Direct
have
us
a
to send it
question. Is there any easy way you could put a cover letter on there saying, why doesn't this apply to joint powers authorities? Because Sam has a website that, let's say, could use improvement along these lines.
Is
Although
that because it's tied into that SDLC group or whatever it is, the special district?
But the grand
leadership
jury
thing?
can investigate whoever they want.
No, but I mean, they
Well, by
took that.
yeah.
By default, Sam wasn't in that group.
Yeah, I
there's
think
no
that's
reason
what it
why
was. They
not.
just
Yeah,
looked
they
at a
could.
list of the special districts and didn't think
They
about
just listed the special
JPAs.
districts.
Right.
The grand jury has in the not-too-distant past, written some report regarding Sam and made some recommendations. So if there's any way you can do it, I would like a cover letter or something that says that all these requirements should also apply to all joint powers authorities.
It's up to your board.
Anybody disagree with?
I mean, what about a starting point going to Sam and, just
Well,
out of
yeah,
compliance that they do it
I'm
to get ahead
gonna,
of the
I'm
curve?
gonna raise the issue with Sam, but Sam's not the only JPA in the county.
Yeah.
So, we can probably get the SAM board to agree to follow this, even though it's not part of the grand jury report, but I think the grand jury needs to revisit it and include all the JPAs.
Mr. President,
Yes.
I don't know if this quite rises to the level of a legal issue, but the reaction I'm having to Director Warren's suggestion is that I think it would be better to have that as a separate letter. I think we're responding to an official grand jury report about all districts. I want to make sure that that's clear because I know there's been a lot of
Yeah, that makes sense.
about one specific district. This was just the grand jury looking at all districts about their websites.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think it would be good to have a formal response that just addresses their report. And then if we want to address the other question, then the board should so advise their general manager.
All right, I move that we send the grand jury response as presented here.
And for that second letter, we would need another agenda item at another meeting. Right?
Yes, I would recommend that.
Okay.
Or Chuck can give me the contact information and I'll send my own letter.
There you go. Even more efficient.
I'll second Leonard's motion, but I still have a question. I have one more question before we actually vote on it.
All right.
Could you elaborate a little bit on R6? Because R7 is the district administrator certification, which Delia is obviously supposed to get. R6 talks about lacking staff or board members.
Yeah, and I thought that was interesting because they seem to overlap.
Because I think they're separate certificates. I know Josh Cosgrove from North Coast County was going for the special district governance thing, because he's a go-getter, and that session was canceled, so now he has to wait, because the next one's in San Diego or something like that. He doesn't want to fly to San Diego to take the class. But do we have a little expansion on that that says, are we all supposed to get the training? All board members?
How I read that is either staff or board member.
I was reading on the website that, and I think there is differences because there
There
was,
is.
Yeah, and the board member one sounded like there was no fee involved, obviously, just for the training of that. So I think,
Right.
I think that, if there's no fee and we have the time to do it, it'd be a good thing to get as many board members to go through that, if it is local and there's not travel
Yeah,
expenses.
if staff could let us know when they're local, because I'm not particularly interested in traveling, and
All right.
not particularly interested in having the district
Well, we'll-
pay
we'll-
for the
yeah.
travel.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, just, since this is an official response, the way I read that, and maybe we should just be clear that that's how we're reading it, is that some staff or some board members, and that could be one of each, we will implement that as to at least one staff or one board member.
Well,
We're not committing that every board member by next May 15th, or are we?
No.
No, I'm committing at a minimum that staff will have that or a board member,
Okay.
which is what they're asking for.
Yeah, the way I read that is that somebody from the district,
Right.
whether it's staff or board, but somebody has to go through it. And so we're agreeing, yes, somebody will go through it.
Right.
Just want to get that on the record.
Is that worth giving SDLF I guess it's not SDLF's question, it's the grand jury's question. We're supposed to, SDLF just offers the course and says you should take it. And they're not saying, SDLF isn't saying every
No.
board member has to do it. It's-
Nor is the grand jury.
No,
They're
okay.
just saying
Okay.
one person, whether it be board member or staff, so.
Okay, call the question. All those in favor of, did we do revisions?
No.
All those in favor of sending the letter to the grand jury as written, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Item 3, consideration of California Special District Association 2014 board elections candidates.
Well, since I see a local name on the ballot, I move that we vote for Catherine Slater Carter.
I'll second that.
Is there any further discussion? All right, ready to vote? All those in favor of the motion just made, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we're going to vote for Catherine Slater Carter. Up the road. That was a quick one.
Well, I was gonna text her and say, who should we vote for? And then I looked more closely and saw her name on there, so that makes it easy.
Item 4, consideration of the district's reorganization into a community services district with the addition of park and recreation powers.
Okay, we don't
Staff
have,
report.
yeah, we don't have much more on this. I'm gonna ask Jonathan a question, I guess, but, we talked with Martha Poyatos right before our last meeting. I gave your board an update on that, so there's some ministerial issues I have to do. I have to now write a letter to her showing that we have met all the conditions outlined in the LAFCO recommendation for approval. So the final thing I've got there is my contact with Marlene Finley at the county parks to cobble together some kind of agreement. So I'm putting that on the hot burner, and hopefully we'll have that by August. So
Well, if you're gonna be over there, you can stop in and see if she's in her
that's
office.
a good idea, actually. I am going to be over there.
In the same, oh no, not in the same building. I don't know where county council is.
County
Oh,
council's
yeah, I
in the
do know where.
courthouse.
Yeah, I do know where county
And
council is
Marlene
because
sits near Martha.
back in the Gary Orton days, he and I dropped in to county council with no appointment and got to see him on the strength of Gary Orton's name.
And then I guess Jonathan and I have talked about what revisions to the ordinance code might be necessitated, because now we're a community services district. And for the most part, everything in ordinance code points to the sanitation district, the Sanitary District Act of 1923. So-
Well, could we just have Division 2 ordinances that apply to Parks
Well,
and
it's
Rec?
interesting because it dovetails, you probably don't remember, but 5 years ago, we started looking at overhauling that ordinance code.
Oh, I remember.
We've had 10,000 other things overtaken priority, but now it's kind of a nice end goal, because we've got to do it for the CSD.
Well,
so
there's
we've gotta
something
look at
else that I want on the agenda, and everybody else is gonna have to help me out here on whether we can even do it before October 1st, maybe not, but I was scoffing at some other agency that had 2 mission statements, but you know what? I think we're gonna need 2 mission statements. One that we have now, and then another one for the Parks and Rec side. So, do we have to wait till October 1st, I guess? Probably?
Probably, yeah.
Okay.
So I was just rereading our mission statement. Looks like a Frankenstein monster cobbled together.
It is, yes, you're absolutely right. I'll tell you later how we got there, or Delia can tell you. But go down to CUSD and read theirs, it takes the whole wall. Of course, it's in print this high, but it takes the whole wall.
Yeah, it's interesting.
In any case, so can we agendize that for our first meeting, October?
I think we should.
Yes. And if you've got a good idea for one,
Well, I'll have to go poking around for other ones.
Yes.
How do you think we got the sanitary district one?
One other thing, Chuck, is the surveyor, remember we need a survey of the boundary?
right. Okay. Make sure I do
For the
that.
whole district?
Yeah, it's on my list.
Can't
That's
believe we
one of the
don't.
things Martha wanted, it's actually fairly expensive and it could be time consuming.
We have to
Can't
do
believe
a
we don't have
survey
that.
in accordance with the, who is it, Jonathan? I know it.
It's
Not LAFCO, it's,
Oh, is it the state lands commission?
You would know it.
It's a state level, yeah, it's at the state level.
yeah.
Um,
It's got, State Board of Equalization, there it is.
Special standards.
It's the State Board of Equalization
That's right.
standards for surveying.
So is
Yeah,
this,
they're
is this like
certified as
5,000,
independent.
25,000? I mean, what do you?
No idea. They're expensive. You know, there's different levels, there's Alta, I don't know what that stands for.
Now, you're gonna have your professional web designer ready to change our homepage on October 1st.
Absolutely, teed up.
But notice that a dozen years ago, when I registered the domain name with Sacramento, I planned ahead, so we don't have to change our domain
Yeah, I
name.
remember having the discussion with the guy.
Oh, they argued with me. They didn't want to give me Granada because the guy said, well, that type of name should be reserved if there's a city there. And I said, if there's a city there, we'll give them the name.
Is GCSD taken? Because we haven't looked at GSD.
Why would you look at it? What's wrong with granada.ca.gov, which I think is
I
the...
would, I was just asking a question.
Oh, no, I never considered that when I
Yeah.
registered Granada. No, because I planned for the district becoming a CSD without having to change the URL.
Oh, I see. All right, so
On
that's,
the
anyone
ordinance
have any
code,
questions?
on the ordinance code, Chuck, you have other districts that have more than one function. How do they do it? Do they have a section 2 of the ordinance code, or is it all integrated?
Well,
or-
it's funny, because we were talking about that, because one of my districts just added 2 powers. So they originally had landscape maintenance and sewer service, and we added security powers and utility undergrounding. And I've got to add that now. The difference is my base code was always based as a CSD. So I reference the CSD law throughout, so I just have to add some provisions about additional powers and whatnot, whereas ours references the Sanitary District Act.
Can you get our ordinance code online, which it used to be once upon a long time ago?
We could, I'll probably do it when the CSD comes along after we go through this revision.
And then I think we should look at the bylaws again, but if you could get those online also, that'd be a good idea too.
Well, part of that may come about as this transparency thing, what they've got there. You know, we just tried to get the main information everybody is looking for, budgets and audits and things like that, minutes and agendas, so. All right, that's all we've got.
Anyone else? No? Item 5, consideration of assessment district administrative budget and cost recovery levy for for fiscal year 2014-15.
All right, another budget we approve each year. This is what we use to decide what the per parcel assessment district charge will be each year. So your board just has to approve this levy and we place it on the tax rolls.
So this is the non-contingent assessment plus the administrative fee?
This pays for the principal and interest, which is at the top, plus all these other fees get loaded into the levy. And then you take that $616,000 at the bottom of the yellow column, you divide it by 1287, and it comes out to somewhere near $475 per parcel.
It comes out to what?
Something like $475 per parcel.
And that's an increase from the previous fiscal year?
What, is it increased or decreased?
Well, we don't know what the amount is going to actually be because it's based on ERUs, not on parcels. And I'm hoping it's going to be decreased based upon, what we're putting on the tax roll.
Okay. So our levy is going to be less, but if we have, the total levy is less than last year, but we have fewer ERUs this year because some of the commercial properties didn't have as many ERUs. So it's generally within plus or minus $50 a year. So, $400, $450, $475.
On footnote 1, it says monthly refund to GSD. Is that refund or is that the reimbursement of
That's
expenses?
reimbursement.
About how many more years does this have to run?
Till 1923.
19?
No,
What?
2023.
2022 is the last.
22, okay.
So at that point, the bonds will be fully paid off, and so the non-contingent assessment would end, but do the contingent assessments
Well, that's a
continue?
whole nother discussion because I have broken my brain trying to figure out what happens in 1922 because we'll still theoretically be collecting contingent assessments to pay back the people who are in the parcels that are still within the assessment district. But, the theory and the actual practice are going to be interesting to figure out. So-
Well, the way this integrated financing district works is that if it was structured so that if the maximum amount of development occurred in any given year, which of course has never happened and never will, but if the maximum allowed under the LCP, if that amount of development occurred, the contingent assessments from that year would fully cover the bond payments for that year. So the non-contingent assessments kick in when, for the previous year, the non-contingent assessments didn't cover the bond payments. So the non-contingent assessments are always covering the shortfall from the previous year. But it seems to me that we somehow, for fairness, and we're going to need some information on this. Well, maybe not. How many of us are going to be here in 2022? But it seems to me that for fairness, the contingent assessments would have to continue because otherwise people who waited get a better deal, and that just seems inherently unfair.
Well, it's not even that. It's the contingent assessments the breakdown happens because it's a 20-year assessment district period. So in 2023, 25, thank you. In 2023, we'll be collecting contingent assessments, but these people won't be paying this $450 a year. So theoretically, if I collect $100,000 in the year 2023, I'm going to take that $100,000 and disseminate it to all the people who reside within the assessment district. Now, chances of it being the same person who was there 20 years ago are, maybe good, maybe bad, but you're paying back the parcel. You're not
Actually,
paying back the person.
there's something else that has first call on that money, and that is that GSD fronted $600,000 and then later another, $400,000. GSD has fronted a ton of money into the assessment district, so that has to be paid back first.
And we've actually been delving deeply into that over the past month and a half. So GSD fronted the $600,000, the $700,000, and then the $1,045,000 for that, whatever you had a word for it, the cost over.
The junk bond?
The
The junk bond.
COP, yeah.
That was $1.289 million.
Well, they listed as 104.5. Anyway.
That's wrong. It was originally 1.289.
All right, and so that with interest is 1.9 million, so the assessment district has to pass all that money back, plus interest over the next, they've been paying us back and they will be paying us back over the next 10 years. So. And that's
Okay.
outlined in the bond documents.
and the plant will be obsolete before it runs out of capacity.
So, Mr. President, if somebody's going to make a motion, I would request that they make a motion along the lines of the bottom of the page there that says the assessment district levy has been reviewed and approved by the district board of directors.
Would anyone like to make that motion?
I would move that the assessment district levy has been reviewed and approved by the board of directors.
Second.
Further discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. All right. Agenda item 6, consideration of report and ongoing issues by district's sewer authority mid-coast side representatives. Who's taking the SAM?
Well, I always like it when somebody else does the report, because I'm not good at meeting reports. But I want to mention one thing, since this notes, the minutes here, I guess these are draft minutes, note that Director Patridge was there as an alternate, because Director Kowalczyk didn't make it. And at some point during the meeting, Director Patridge made the comment that the meetings were a lot smoother, and I can't remember her specific words, but she said, you know, smoother, friendlier, calmer, whatever, not as contentious as in the past. So she was really impressed by that as to how well the current SAM board is getting along, and it was pretty interesting for her to say that.
Yeah, she actually said she enjoyed the meeting.
Yeah, it actually got in the minutes too.
And thank the GM for his staff reports.
The big things that happened is, you know, Sam approved the two budgets, the general budget and the collection budget. I thought another really interesting thing was, under director's reports, Director Altana from Half Moon Bay recommended that we agendize a discussion potentially updating the SAM JPA agreement.
He actually wants to have a whole new one written.
Right, so they've initiated that too, so I think the meeting on Monday, 2 Mondays from now, will actually be launching whatever the process is to probably just do an entire new JPA at this point, because it's just a mess. And
Yeah, and
it's silly, and everything's wrong with it, and
Right. And that's been discussed at a staff level ad nauseum, because it would help everyone out if we had a clearer JPA agreement.
I think as part of that, we kind of discussed at the meetings, my big deal that I keep fighting is this variable monthly charge for all the water charges, or the sewer charges, and everybody seems, I think, at the meeting, kind of okay with, if we're gonna do a new JPA, let's just lock it in.
That's not the impression I got.
Well, you're wrong.
He's given the report.
It seems, I'll say, that at least they're leaning more in that direction than they have in the past, which was arguing over pennies, and we'd end up losing $100,000 because of that. I'm hoping, let's say then, that that will be part of it. I'll certainly push for that.
So if that's being discussed at the staff level, are you pushing the approach of the fixed charges being on plant ownership and then the variable charges being on flow percent?
We haven't talked in that level of detail. We've kept it simpler, like Rick's talking about, because, like I said, 90% of the costs are fixed, so that variable thing, it's just one more thing to talk about.
Well, except there has to be,
but
there has to be some incentive for the member agencies to keep their systems maintained and not let I&I get out of control. So that incentive is the variable costs are based on flow.
Oh, we could do it. I'm not saying, we're just telling you at a staff level, we haven't gotten to that level
I
of
mean,
detail.
look at CCWD. My water bill, 2/3 of it at least is the base charge, or 3/4 depending on the month.
Well, you don't use much water.
That's true.
Right.
But it also means I have no incentive to conserve because my marginal cost is near zero.
Don't know what to say. I'm just telling you at a staff level, we haven't talked about it.
Okay, but I really think it needs to be split based on the fixed charges. And, you know, if it's split that way and the fixed charges, as you told me before, like 80 to 85%, the variable charges aren't going to deviate much, and the meter reading problems are going to end up being minor effect.
And that's a dual-edged sword, because if it's going to have a minor effect, it's not going to incentivize people to save water.
Right, and someday, while I'm still on this board, I hope to get on the agenda considering going to some usage-based charging here. It's been on my to-do list for 17 years.
Better start calling that your don't list.
The other item that affects us and the weeds growing out front is that we voted just to wrap up the project and give the contractor his $5,000.
On a 3-to-1.
I saw that.
But I wanted to say that quickly before Leonard jumped
On a
in.
3-to-1 vote, any ideas who voted no?
Leonard, I give you credit, you stuck to your guns.
So that's all I have on that.
And I argued my case, but lost.
Good job, Rick.
I know this.
We're gonna have Chuck out there planting weeds.
I know this item is yet to be agendized, but has there been any idea or discussion of just how the JPA agreement is going to be updated? What sort of format or?
Well, I think we can throw out all
Council
the,
will probably have to be involved, but.
I think we can throw out all the things related to deciding what project was gonna be built, and if this project or that project, then blah, you know, all that language is obsolete at this point. But I've been told that one of the reasons Half Moon Bay wants to do this is they want to take out their responsibility for paying their fair share of the IPS maintenance. And so if they insist on that, it's not going anywhere.
And like I said, we've had that discussion at staff levels. That's the only reason we're doing it. It's DOA maybe. So, but I think it's a good idea, because we have to look at it and we have to make the decision and say, here's the new one, and see if people agree. They do, they do. If they don't, at least we tried, because we've been living with this horrible document for however many years it's been, almost 30 years.
1978.
Yeah, just completely.
Count how many times you do at the meeting. Well, I can't really see that in the agreement. Or,
Right.
gosh, it isn't really specific on that. Or, I don't know, it could be this or it could be that. And it's
And-
like, really?
And Copeland told me a few years ago that the reason the JPA agreement is problematic is because if there'd been some of the things in there at the time that we wish now were there, it never would have gotten approved. That's his
Yep.
excuse. I'm
We will
gonna
see
stand
what-
firm on that word.
So my question is, where's this new draft JPA come from to be haggled over?
I think Jonathan should write it.
I'm
Well,
guessing they would want Jim Copeland.
I think maybe we'll discuss that in 10 days. This was just a statement that people want to move forward with looking at it, but they didn't really.
right.
Are there any councils with a specialty in writing JPA agreements? Because I specifically don't want Copeland to write it.
Well, I know the counsel for the JPA down south, Greg Moser. So I don't know if he specializes in JPAs, but it might be a good outside.
Can you
Party to draft it.
get us at least one of the agreements he's written?
And his contact info, that'd be great. We could tell them at the Monday meeting that we've contacted this attorney, we've drawn up the agreement. Would you please sign it?
We'll talk about what you think of it.
Trust
next,
Yeah,
after
trust
that.
Trust me.
All right, let's move to the consent agenda. Do we have a motion, or would
I have-
anyone
I
like
have-
an
I have-
item held?
I have a correction in the minutes. I guess we need to hold minutes.
All right, that's item 7. Do we have a motion for items 8, 9, and 10?
Well, let me look at the agenda here. 8, 9, 10. Okay, I move approval of item 8, the July 2014 warrants for $178,997.25. Item 9, June 2014 financial statements. Item 10, approval of assessment district distribution number 12-13/14 for $3,721.40.
Second that.
All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Thank you. No, all right, what is, back to item 7.
I have to find it. I didn't have a pen with me when I was reading this.
Did you pull item 7? You did.
Yes. Worth the check. Okay, on item 2 at the top of the third unnumbered page. No page numbers. Item 2, the CSD recurring item, says that I gave a summary of the steps, blah, 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 and added that LAFCO would be certifying the passage. I believe I said recording, or whatever the word, the phrase is involving the word recording the certificate of completion, something like that.
Actually, I don't think it's LAFCO that certifies the passage.
No.
Right,
Yeah.
that's the board, well, the elections department certifies the election results, and then the Board of Supervisors has to accept the results of the canvass, and then LAFCO files the certificate of completion. So
Right.
in here where it says certifying the passage, it should say recording the certificate. Certifying the passage in Measure G, that phrase should be recording the certificate of completion of the reorganization.
Any more?
Certificate of completion?
Right. So with that correction, if nobody else has anything, I move approval of the minutes as corrected for June 19th, 2014.
Second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. No objections. Item 11, committee reports. Do we have any?
We have 2. At the end of June, there was a big meeting held over in Foster City on implications of sea level rise.
Oh, I completely forgot about that, and I was there.
You were there. It must have shocked you so much to see Foster City underwater and SFO underwater that you probably couldn't recover.
Oh, I was sitting next to Scott, and he had his laptop and said he was running the simulation showing what gets inundated at various levels, and you'd be surprised how much of the county and even some of the coastside is inundated at not much of a rise.
This was sponsored by Supervisor David Pine and our representative Jackie Spear. It was attended in the packed meeting, but cities were there, a lot of special districts were there.
And nobody from Half Moon Bay.
And it was both thrilling and scary. And I think they will eventually try to put together some form of an organization to coordinate this, because the general thought was they don't want one city building for a 4-foot rise and the next door city building for a 2-foot rise and everything else. They will try to coordinate. There seemed to be a general consensus or thought that immediate planning needs to go in for a 3-foot sea rise.
Funny you should mention that, because in the breakout session, I was sitting next to the guy from Santa Clara County, the Director of Public Works, and they're only planning for 2 feet. And so they're building levees to deal with 2 feet.
So if we build ours on 3, Santa Clara's, no problem, wipe them out. But the second part of the statement was, be sure and plan this in what I would call a modular or an expandable fashion, because it's not going to be 3 feet, but nobody knows a number, so you got to do something. So maybe, and that isn't official yet or anything, but that was kind of a number people started throwing out.
Oh, but Santa Clara's stuck on their 2 feet and it can't be increased. It's not designed so you can add on to it.
They're going to be underwater.
Yes, but don't you think that as they get underwater, it's going to spill over back into San Mateo County?
You have to have a wall between
We'll
us
just
and
build
them.
until you get up to the hills, then you're.
Which at that point in time, might as well pay for their extra foot.
One-on-one's going to be in trouble.
Now afterwards, I spoke to Jackie Spear and Dave Pine. Supervisor Horsley had to leave early for another commitment. And I said the first thing you should do when you're waist deep in a hole is stop digging. And of course, they didn't know what I meant by that. And I said, well, we need to stop permitting building in places that are gonna require levees to protect them. And they poo-pooed that and brushed it off as out of the question, not ever gonna be considered.
Jackie Spear brought up some interesting things for things like in North Carolina at the Outer Banks, which would obviously be affected, the beaches and all the tourist industry. They have passed legislation that it is illegal to consider sea rise in any planning sessions.
Wow.
So I
Really?
asked her if there was some way at Congress that with sea levels rising, if they could pass a law that if you don't want to help with this, when you get inundated, don't come to us for money. And she kind of laughed and said, well, that'd be an interesting law. But all these places that aren't going to do anything, you know, the minute the first little big storm comes in, hurricane wipes out the entire city, they're going to say, oh, now you have to give us $400 billion to
Like
save us.
federal disaster
Right,
assistance.
so-
Well, one of the.
I was on the Outer Banks, by the way,
Oh.
when the hurricane came up,
Oh.
2 weeks ago.
One of the other things that I would like to see GSD agendize in the somewhat near future is our sewer line in Marauder Road. Because we are gonna see that road disappear. And GSD should not be in the position of having to defend the road because we have a sewer line there. So we need to deal with it. It's not gonna be cheap, and so that's why we need to have significant board level discussion of what we're gonna do.
So budget for riprap next year?
When's your contract up?
Anytime you want it.
That's right, yeah.
In 1998, Kit Dove said, graceful retreat, you put the infrastructure on the other side of what it serves, so that what it serves disappears before you have to defend the infrastructure.
Interesting way to look at it.
That should be put in bronze right up there besides other comments. That was a great story.
As an addendum to his plaque.
Yes.
The other meeting I attended was the LAFCO meeting yesterday. There were a lot of small items and strange configurations of lots, and they were messing with some of the sewer district things and annexing a couple lots into a different sewer
But
district. just 'cause-
but that's all that LAFCO ever
Yeah.
did up until a couple of big issues like Measure F and us.
I'm just commenting on that's what happened, because then the big item came up, which was a discussion of a recent jury report, and this was the one on the Harbor District. And they discussed the process. They didn't do anything at the meeting or change anything, but it looks like the plan, the grand jury report stuck a whole bunch of dates in. You know, you should do this by this date, and LAFCO should do this, and the county should do that. Some of them seem to be not in a good sequence, but I think what's going to happen is at the September meeting, LAFCO is going to launch its, I guess it's called Municipal Services Review, an MSR, on the Harbor District. It'll probably be done with a consultant because there's just too much going on right now. That will be the first process which starts. Once that evaluation is completed, then the county can look at that, because the biggest recommendation in the jury report was to dissolve the district and just have the county do it and just spread all the stuff out. Well, the county wasn't necessarily 100% in favor of taking this over, but they didn't go into the details of all that. There's a couple of comments.
But that's
at the beginning.
progress, because as recently as a couple of years ago, they were totally against
Can we
it.
let
And I don't wanna comment on-
Director Lowen get through a
on that.
paragraph or at least a sentence?
Yeah, so the process will be that the MSR is going to be started. Then the county will look at that probably sometime in December. There were a couple of comments made about, well, and then we have a November election coming up. Because some people, a lot of the comments in the grand jury were about the governance and just the actions of the people against each other within the board. So I think there was this sense of hope that possibly in the election in November, if different people might get involved, then the problem might be self-solved. The grand jury report also allows for that to occur. If LAFCO won't dissolve it, then it said here are 3 major areas which just need to be corrected, period. You know, the finances, the transparency, mushing of all the property taxes, the governance, and misuse of all their assets. So nothing moved forward except the starting of getting ready to do the MSR, which will happen at the September meeting. So I don't want to comment on the jury report or anything, but
Right.
that will definitely affect everybody in the area here. So it's something people would probably want to follow, is all these government actions on the Harbor District, so.
I wonder what their last MSR looked like, because they do it every 5 years, so, because we did ours.
Well, they may
Probably
be,
near
they may
5
be
years.
advancing the schedule, because I thought that North County agencies were coming up right now for MSR.
They're coming up right now, so I don't know how fast, I don't know what the timeline on wrapping that up is, but that's a big one, and it's being done by a consultant.
Have
And then
you,
this one's back and right up on top of that, and they might go in parallel or overlap. So.
have you requested televising of LAFCO as I asked you to do?
I did not at that meeting.
Are you
I
going
managed to
to?
survive and get to the meeting, so.
Have you
Like
sat
that.
on the commission yet, or only in the audience?
I voted in the last two,
Oh, okay.
because Joe's gotten busy, he has another type of job, and he's traveling a lot. So, and I'll ask him if he's gonna be gone on this one coming up in September soon. So.
Well, maybe what you could do is send Martha in advance, in plenty of time in advance, send her a request to put on the agenda for commission discussion, televising the meetings.
Because I think with these two big MSRs coming up, there's gonna be a lot of community interest and county interest, because these are, two big areas that affect the whole county, so more people would probably want to see this, rather than annexing one lot into a sewer district. So, that's it.
Thank you. Anyone else? All right, moving along. Attorney's report.
No report.
Item 13, Treasurer's report.
Nothing further to add.
Item 14, General Manager's report.
Nothing further.
Item 15, Administrator's report.
I'm having a hard time turning pages that fast.
I just wanted to note that I received a phone call from Dave Dixon, the general manager of Coastal County Water District, in regards to that repair that I have a note on about reimbursement from them, and he was letting me know that we were going to be getting an official rejection letter from CCWD. However, he felt that the liability was on their contractor, and they had passed it over to them, and that I would be getting, some hopefully update from them on what was going to happen with that soon.
Can I ask counsel, when an agency hires a contractor to do something and the contractor screws up something of somebody else's, is the liability really not on the agency that hired the contractor?
First of all, council never likes to address liability issues in public session, but in general, the district that hired the contractor has their own responsibility. too.
That's what I would think. And so CCWD brushing this off, it's like, they can't do that.
Well, it's also pretty standard to deny claims.
Right.
And then you negotiate them later. So I don't know if that's going on here or not.
We'll go turn off their sewer service at the office.
So we didn't hear that.
But the microphones did, so.
Oh, you should have,
Posterity.
you should have heard the mayor of Half Moon Bay at their meeting earlier this week when, they had a special study session on the library. And he said, well, there's a lot of people here who want to speak, so I'll give everybody 2 minutes, but 1 minute if you're against it. No, that was a joke, I'm just kidding.
Okay, and I just wanted to note that I did summarize the total number of applications, permits, hookups, and repairs that we've done for fiscal year 13-14. That's it.
Thank you. Item 16, Engineer's report.
Got nothing further than what's in there. We're getting to the end of the design and technical specifications for the CIP program, so.
So construction would start, when?
Couple months, it's gonna take them a hopefully the things will be wrapped up. They'll send them to me. I'll review them, then we'll send it out to bid. That'll take 30 days, so a couple months.
So will it be a short enough construction period that if we actually get some rain in the winter, that it'll be done before then?
It should be. When's the rainy season start?
Officially, October 15th, in reality, December.
Oh, so, yeah.
But if it's an El Nino, who knows, all bets are off if it's a wet El Nino. You can have an El Nino that's not wet, and so there's still only like an 80 to 85% confidence factor that's gonna be a wet El Nino. And 15% are saying, it might be a dry El Nino.
When they did the last CIP, how'd they build it? They didn't do trench. They did trenchless?
Yes, they did trenchless.
Yeah, they did trenchless, so there's less of an effect.
So when the district engineer Rayners writes next year, he's talking fiscal year, not calendar year.
Fiscal year, yeah.
Right, okay. Good, all right.
You know, we forgot to mention, the Harbor District is starting their strategic business plan, and so they had a meeting over in Princeton, and there's gonna be one over at Oyster Point, and then sometime later there'll be a second one here, and then a second one at Oyster Point. So people who are interested in what goes on facility-wise at the Harbor District probably want to get involved with the strategic business plan update. So there should be links on the Harbor District's website, but I'm not sure, smharbor.com.
All right, thank you. That concludes our agenda for the regular meeting, and so the regular meeting is now adjourned.
And we're reconvening the special meeting for a closed session.